Welcome to 33 Founders, a series about founders of the coolest startups. Brought to you by 33 Voices and hosted by Chase Jennings and Jenna Abdu.
My name is Tracy DiNunzio. I am the founder and CEO of Tradesy.com. We're a peer-to-peer marketplace for women's fashion. So we're the easiest, fastest, and safest way for women to sell their closet overflow online and turn their clothes into cash.
And I'm John Hall. I'm the CTO and technical co-founder of Tradesy. And it's my job to make sure the product is built properly and scalable and is available to and easy for everyone that comes to the site.
Awesome. So before we dive into all the exciting projects you guys are working on right now, I want to go back to the beginning. Tracy, not a lot of founders rent out their bedrooms and sleep on a couch to make their startup happen. Can you take us back to those early days when you were, sitting on the couch trying to figure out how you were going to create Tradesy?
Sure. So the first version of Tradesy was actually a site called recycledbride.com. Same idea, a peer-to-peer marketplace where women could buy and sell directly to and from each other, but Recycled Bride was just for wedding items. I always had a larger vision for doing that for the fashion category as well, but because I had no funding and no experience, I started in a more focused vertical like weddings, which I think is a good way for any new early entrepreneur to approach a market. Just pick like a little slice of that market that you think you can conquer in order to prove that your concept makes sense. And I had no funding, I had no experience, nobody was going to invest in me. So at that time, so I sold my car, I sold my clothes, I sold everything I had to cover my bills so that I could stay focused on the business. And when I had sold everything I had and still wanted to invest more in the company, I started sleeping on my couch and renting out my bedroom on Airbnb.
What kind of conversations were you having with yourself at that time to keep yourself on track and motivated?
Holy bleep, what am I doing with my life? This could be and probably will be a disaster. So point being, at the time, it wasn't like I felt or knew for sure that I was onto something that was going to be huge. I was terrified all the time, and I think that's normal, and I had tons of self-doubt, and I just kind of went through, on a day-to-day basis, I went through a process where every time I would start to get really anxious, I would force myself to learn one new thing, and then tell myself that if I still wanted to be anxious afterwards, I could indulge in it. And usually the process of learning something and implementing something, no matter how small, like learning how to run a Facebook contest, by the time you're done with it, it kind of eases that anxiety because you've accomplished something and you've learned something and you feel more confident. But I was a nervous wreck, and I think all entrepreneurs are when they're first getting started.
Clothing consignment is a really crowded field, especially now with all these different online platforms. And I know when you guys started out, it was your mission to really make Tradesy stand out and be the best platform for people to use. And so a couple of the way you guys do that is by sending free shipping kits and suggesting prices for people. How did you look at what already existed and see what worked and what didn't to incorporate that into Tradesy?
I think it was a combination of anecdotal information, meaning I'm a woman, I had the same kind of closet overflow problems that I think many women in this country have. And I knew anecdotally from myself and my friends that most of us were not using eBay because we found it too complicated and time consuming. And most of us were not taking all of our closet overflow to local consignment stores because the payoff was just, pennies on the dollar and you'd have to wait to get paid. So I knew that among my circles, there wasn't a satisfactory solution to this closet overflow issue that we were all having. Then I investigated, doing just a lot of really intensive research to find out if what I knew anecdotally was supported by market research. was eBay's fashion category performing for women in general? Were women engaging in reselling consignment behavior? How serious was the closet overflow issue? And it takes a lot of digging around, but that's part of kind of proving your market opportunity and understanding how big your company can possibly get. So it was kind of a two-pronged approach, like intuitive, anecdotal, plus very research-driven. If both of those things add up to say, yes, this is a good opportunity, then probably got a good opportunity.
Was there any customer feedback that really helped you mold the platform based on that?
Customer feedback is pretty much everything that molded the platform. So before Tradesy, I had 3 years of experience with Recycled Pride. John joined the company about a year before we merged Recycled Pride into Tradesy. So we were really absorbing customer feedback over a really long period of time and adjusting our platform as we went to suit what our market needed. And we were well positioned when we launched Tradesy to take all those years of customer feedback and really apply it. So I think that worked in our favor.
So what advice can you give to entrepreneurs who are running 2 companies and want to merge them together?
Oh, goodness. Don't do that would be my advice. But if you're in a position of having to do that, have someone like John to make sure that the whole darn thing doesn't break. And I think he can probably speak to that more than I can.
Yeah, I think my main advice around that is to take it slowly and iteratively. Don't try to mash everything together all at once, and especially don't try to match 2 products together all at once without really carefully planning and knowing how the 2 products are different and how you're going to have to account for those differences.
Yeah, our merge of Recycled Bride into Tradesy was something that our team planned for about 3 months and worked on solely for a full month, right up until our launch date at 3 a.m. when we hit the button and the merge happened. It has to be, I have that on tape, by the way. It has to be very, very well thought out. It's better to separately run 2 things that are doing okay for their audiences than try and smush them all together and make a mess of them. It takes a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we actually had the benefit of having 2 websites that were very, very similar. There were very similar marketplaces just for 2 different verticals. So, I think for a lot of companies, it's not a good strategy to merge 2 products that are different, but we were lucky in that they were very, very similar.
Is there one mistake that you made during that process that other entrepreneurs can learn from?
There are about 1,000 mistakes that we made during that process. I would say, I don't know if there was a mistake we made particularly during the merge process that would necessarily be relevant to other teams. But I think that just about mistakes in general, the way to, there are 2 things, one is it's really important in a fast-moving young company to know that as a co-founder, as a team member, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and it's okay, and the most important thing is what you learn from them. And that the way to avoid making colossal, really damaging mistakes is to break projects off into small, iterative pieces and do multiple releases as you develop it, because then you don't spend 3-4 months building something and find out that your big mistake was critical to that.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jace.
Okay, so back in May, you had 250,000 users, gaining 50,000 each month during the first 5 months. I mean, that's pretty unheard of for a startup. So what's your secret, and how many are you at right now?
We are at close to 500,000 members now, somewhere in the 500,000s. And our secret, I think, is not a secret. It's really, when you're providing value to your customer, particularly when you have, as we have, two types of customers who provide value to each other, and we're really just the connecting platform that smooths out those interactions. The growth is really organic, and people tell their friends, and people searching for items find you more easily because you have more items. And so it's really been organic the way that our growth has happened, because I think we're just providing so much value to both buyers and sellers that everyone's telling their friends.
Yeah, and we've just stayed incredibly focused on the most important core features so that all of our customers are extremely happy with those features. It's much better, we think, to have a few absolutely amazing features as opposed to 30, 40, 50 mediocre features.
How do you decide to let go of features?
I'm sorry?
How do you decide to let go of certain features?
We fight.
We fight like cats and dogs, and whoever has more strong points wins, and that's it. I mean, we run a really kind of transparent, flat organization, so when we're deciding what to build on top of and what to kill, it's really a team decision. It's not like a vote, it's not consensus-based, it's not a democracy. It's we'll argue until it becomes very clear that someone is more right than whoever disagrees, and that's what we go with.
Right. What's going to move the needle the most out of all of these things we want to do?
And we always use data, and we always use numbers to prove our points, and that's really important. Anyone who's done startup stuff for any amount of time knows that as you may think you know, but you don't know until you've released things and tested things. So,
right.
You know, we go off of our early data, we make smart assumptions and projections, and then we battle it out and say, you know, if we go this way, I think we can hit these numbers, and if we go that way, I think we can hit these numbers. And that's usually what the decisions are focused around.
And it can be very easy to fall in love with certain ideas and features, but
I do that.
You really have to. We've learned that we have to, you know, let go of ideas just because we think they might be great.
On that note, I know one of your guys' goals is by the end of 2013, you'd like to have more than $40 million of fashion on sale at Tradesy. How are you guys on track to accomplish that?
We've actually already beaten that by a lot.
Awesome.
So we have a little over $100 million in inventory for sale on Tradesy right now. We didn't know. Our projections were conservative, and we didn't realize how quickly inventory would be added. We also, early on, we were definitely, the average price point of an item on our site was a little bit lower. But because our system is working so well to prevent fraud, and we're able to keep our commissions so low, we're now attracting buyers and sellers of luxury goods. So we're just getting much more inventory value on the site than we had anticipated in our early days.
You mentioned that you started out with more of a conservative goal, or what now seems very conservative based on what you've accomplished. Would you recommend that startup entrepreneurs go with that for their first year? They have some huge goal that is maybe not as attainable, but it has them aspiring to do huge things? Or would you recommend that someone stays a little bit conservative to stay on a more step-by-step track?
So not all of our goals were conservative, and we haven't hit all of our goals. There are areas where we overestimated and areas where we underestimated, and the nature of any, especially consumer-facing startup, is so unpredictable that I think it's important. One of our investors said this to me, and I think it's a good rule to go by. Your goal should be numbers that you think you can hit with a 2/3 probability, like 66.6% chance that you're going to hit or surpass these goals. And what that does is that it puts you in a mind frame where you are projecting optimistically and telling yourself what the potential really is, knowing that you may not hit it, but feeling somewhat confident that you could. And that's a good kind of place to calibrate.
What are a few of your guys' goals for the future? Are you thinking of expanding to men and children's clothing, maybe home?
Complete world domination is our goal. So there are two approaches. Our only goal right now is to dominate and own the women's fashion resale market online. We believe that that is a huge opportunity, also that there's a huge problem that women have that we're solving. And until we've owned that market, we don't have any intention of doing anything else. Once we've owned that market, there are a million opportunities. We can expand into different verticals like men's and kids. We can expand internationally into other markets in other countries, and we're constantly researching what that best option is. But we're definitely sole focus on our core goal right now.
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous, I think, for us to get too far ahead of ourselves with thinking about those goals. You know, it's super important to focus on the market we're in.
Absolutely.
Sorry guys, I got kicked out there. Okay, so in only 3 years, you've built a company worth 10 million. So where do you want to be in the next 3?
So we have an interesting also trajectory for this company because technically Tradesy is only 1 year old. And in that year, I think that 10 million number is a little bit old. It was based on our last valuation, so hopefully there will be news out soon that number is actually much bigger. But where we want to be in the next 3 years is at market saturation point, meaning that there are about 70 million women in the country who we believe would find our product useful, and we'd like to capture a really significant portion of that market, and that's really what we kind of live, eat, sleep, and breathe day in and day out.
So I just want to know really quick personally, I really admire everything that you guys have done and just your work ethic and trust that when you start something it's going to work out. What would you say is the best advice you've received along the way that kept you motivated to stay on track?
Oh gosh, for me personally, I've received so much good advice from so many people that I wouldn't even know where to start. But I think actually the thing that motivated me the most, and this is going to sound funny and opposite of what it should be, early on, our first investor was Danny Levy, who was the founder of Daily Candy, and she was like my idol. She's done what I hope to do, which is just build a giant company that changes the way people think, and then become really personally successful from it as well. So when I had the chance to meet with her, I was super nervous, and I didn't know, what it was going to be like. And what motivated me and kept me going was that Danny sat down with me and was super real about how hard it is. And because I expected her to be a superhero and to come, and I was secretly always tired and always terrified and always stretched beyond my limits. And she kind of came and sat down and said, oh, wow, you're in the most exciting part of this, but it's also the hardest. I remember being tired all the time, super stressed out, screwing things up, and that's why I like to be open about how that is and not say, oh yeah, it was just a breeze, and I built it and it took off. It's really hard. So I feel like it's actually motivating to understand that every entrepreneur is climbing an impossible mountain, and we're all having a hard time at the same time that we're loving what we do. That's the reality.